Topic two. Stochastic terrorism is an instigation of animosity directed to a specific person or group. It is often done by political or religious thought leaders in the media towards their enemies. The hate that they generate is generalized, but as the violent rhetoric is repeated, it encourages others to act on it in unpredictable fashion. That gives the speaker plausible deniability. Does it count as stochastic terrorism to publicly spread hostile rhetoric at a person accused but not convicted of a heinous crime? Does it matter if the accused may have committed a crime of hate themselves? Is spreading misinformation about a contentious event, like the Rittenhouse trial, an example of creating a hostile environment where violence may erupt? Or is this the normal combative rhetoric that is present during a controversial, politically charged moment? And credit to our friend Doobie for coming up with this interesting question. Yeah, if you were here on Saturday, then you know where we're going with this. But um, uh, stochastic terrorism is a thing that we have to deal with now in general. People have been escalating rhetoric to dangerous levels, right? And honestly, it seems like in the hope to get someone to take an action. Now we've had discussions, and this not just on this channel, fucking every channel, about the Rittenhouse trial, for instance, right? And not just that, but other situations like this, where uh, the rhetoric escalates, and maybe we dehumanize people. Um, so is that sarcastic terrorism? So let's explore that. Bougie, thank you so much for the 5 hot tier on gift subs, getting us to the next level. Thank you. And everyone else has been supporting. All right, I'm going to go and uh, opening statements for our guests. Help out the hype chain if you can. So bits and gift subs. All right, Pisco.
Yeah, I'm going to ask the indulgence of the panel because I'm going to tailor my comments mostly to Destiny.
Oh
And I
God.
think that, by and large, I think Destiny is a good person. I think that he's very careful about his language. And I think that, we agree on a lot, but he is absolutely at sea with his position. Now, we're having this topic in the context of him calling Vivian three things on the panel. He called Vivian a stochastic terrorist. He called Vivian a terrorist supporter, and he called Vivian a terrorist. Before we get into stochastic terrorism, I think it's important to know what Destiny thinks about terrorism. Destiny says that terrorism is too ambiguous, too broad, too vague, too amorphous. But Destiny uses the word terrorist. We know that because Destiny called Vivian a terrorist. Now, he says this was just a short form for stochastic terrorist, and I didn't have that context, and that he needs to be careful. I buy that, and I accept him at good faith that that is indeed what he meant. But that means that he needs to be careful and more careful, because that's the same context and the same excuse that Vosh gives for using fascist. It's the heat of the moment, it's the heat of the panel, and that's why I get loose with my language. And so if that's the case, and I'll take it at face value that it is, he needs to be more careful about that. But Destiny also doesn't matter if he didn't mean to call Viv a terrorist. He calls other people terrorists. By calling Viv a terrorist supporter, he implicitly called Michael Reinhold a terrorist. He calls Al-Qaeda members terrorists. He calls Oklahoma City members terrorists. And he doesn't hesitate. But when I refer to January 6th and insurrectionists there, he hesitates. But why? What are the things that distinguish those actions? And there certainly are things that distinguish those actions. But Destiny hasn't given definitional criteria to distinguish why terrorism, when terrorism starts and when it ends. If the word is bad, if the word is too vague, then he needs to reflect on when it is that it's okay to use it. When is it an easy case for which it makes sense to use terrorism? And when is it being used too vaguely and it's just trying to reflect the political proclivities of the speaker? Destiny says that the terrorism is too broad. And how can you apply the same word to people in Al-Qaeda and to the insurrectionists of January 6th? Excuse me, how can you apply the same label of stochastic terrorist to Trump as you can apply to Vivian? I'm assuming that something about this term stochastic terrorism has to do with your proclivity or your likelihood to induce others to commit violence. And so are you really saying on the same level Trump and Vivian are stochastic terrorists? And if so, your criticism drops with respect to this massive gulf between the magnitude of the harms caused by either form of terrorist. Destiny, when asked what is his definition for stochastic terrorism, he says something loosely like advocating violence. Well, Trump didn't really do that explicitly, and Vivian qualified everything. And it would seem to sweep in Destiny into the very thing that he's accusing others of. Because I'm sorry to say, Destiny did make a comment about dipshit protesters. We all know that comment. He says he distinguishes it because it was justified violence in that case. Well, I'm sorry, every terrorist thinks that their violence is justified. Well, you can't you can't distinguish it by virtue of it being legal, because what Destiny's offering is not legal. It's not legal to use deadly self-defense by and large in this country just for defense of property. So I'm sorry, if you're going to accuse the regular label of terrorism of being too broad and too vague, this stochastic terrorism definition, I mean, is just the vaguest thing I can think of. I want to know some definitional criteria that Destiny uses for this term, and why Vivian is being swept into the same thing that we're calling Trump for. In summary, Destiny uses the word terrorism, but he hesitates when it's being applied to certain groups, and he doesn't provide definitional criteria for terrorism or stochastic terrorism, and he needs to justify himself, and everyone should have a thought about that. Thank you.
Okay, thanks so much. And that hype train is still going on. Sub, give bits, give subs, help us out. That's how we do make this happen. If you're enjoying this content. All right, Fanatic, please, opening statement. And any second now.
You're
He's
Oh, that
just
was crazy. That nigga's definitely a lawyer. That was something else. Yeah, man. I think I don't like super duper nebulous terms, and I think stochastic terrorism is one such thing, right? Because who we're going to view as a terrorist is going to largely depend on who how much we agree with their positions or whatever, right? If you, for example, the United States to some people would be terroristic, right? Like with some of the things that we've done in the Philippines and other places, right? But clearly, most Americans wouldn't identify it that way. For some people, Kyle Rittenhouse is a terrorist, right? But then there's plenty of people like Destiny who wouldn't view Kyle Rittenhouse as a terrorist. So this term almost means little to nothing. I don't know why we would even use it, because there's so much plausible deniability baked into the term itself that it means close to nothing.
Final points.
Yeah, so, I mean, I'm literally using Google. Terrorism, the unlawful use of violence and intimidation, especially against civilians in the pursuit of political aims. I don't know what was said on Saturday, but I know that Vivian has talked about extrajudicial violence against people for political reasons. I know that she's talked about, basically people compiling lists of known nefarious actors, and I would see that as extrajudicial advocation of violence and intimidation against civilians for political aims. Now, the question is whether or not these things are good. Obviously, you can enact violence for principles that you believe in, but that's kind of where definitionally I think we do get into a certain weird amount of water, because if compiling dox lists and sending death threats or pipe bombing Humvees in the name of environmentalism, if that's terrorism, then it's also terrorism to chop off people's heads and commit suicide bombing. So there's obviously a wide spectrum of violence that falls under the label terrorism. I think that the conversation for why terrorism is so nebulous and poorly used is related to Phil Gursky, somebody that I've talked to, basically said that homicide is homicide, murder is murder. So basically by using this term, this very loaded term, and allowing it to be used in our public parlance so often, we're opening up a Pandora's box where we can just label anybody a terrorist for any amount of advocacy or violence that crosses some social threshold. And that's the danger of it. So for me, I have no problems with the use of the word, but I think we need to be specific. And while we're being specific, we probably shouldn't be wrestling over the definition. We should just agree that there's a spectrum of violence that falls under this label, and then say, I believe this person on a 0 to 10 between ISIS and people who pour sugar in the gasoline of high gasoline vehicles. I think this person is a 1.5, and then we can kind of have a conversation from there. But I'll leave it there, and I'm looking forward to the open. I'm sure it will be super mild.
Oh boy. Destiny, lots of things been said about you.
I didn't take notes for that opening. That I didn't know we were. I didn't know I was on defense right here. So I like the term stochastic terrorism because I think that there needs to be a way to describe calls to violence that aren't direct calls to violence. So given some time to expand my actual definition of stochastic terrorism, which I think aligns with how I've seen other people define it, stochastic terrorism is essentially you are publicly presenting a universe where the only option left is violent options. That's it. Violent action is the only way to rectify or remedy a given situation. So good examples, I think, are when you have people saying things like foreign immigrants are invaders into your country, your politicians are all bought out and nobody's going to stop them, and they're going to come in and take over and ruin your way of life if nobody stops them. I think that you're creating a situation politically, or you're creating this air of this idea that the only way to stop these people is through violent action. Therefore, when you constantly engage in this type of rhetoric and somebody acts, you can't just kind of like wring your hands and be like, oh, well, who could have guessed, And then as a second example, I would say somebody like Donald Trump absolutely engages in this. When you say things like your electoral system has been hijacked, Pence isn't helping you, Congress isn't helping you, nobody's helping you, all the intelligence agencies, everybody's fucked. If somebody ends up doing a violent action, like say invading the fucking Capitol building on January 6th, I would argue that like you have engaged in a form as Donald Trump of stochastic terrorism. You're fomenting a situation where the only possible way to remedy it is through some violent action. Now, to get a little bit more personal, I think Pisco will try to attack me because of my reluctance to use terrorist as like an actual label. I will admit that if I'm like engaged in a conversation and someone's like, oh, are you familiar with like the terrorist organization ISIS? I'm probably just gonna be like, yeah, of course, or yeah, I know, like, yeah, these terrorists, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Now, like on a broader level, should I stop and say every time, well, I don't know if I would call them a terrorist organization, but yeah, maybe, sure, I could acknowledge that. The thing that I like the most about the stochastic terrorism definition, though, is just what it defines, not the idea that it is giving me a closer definition of terrorism. Like, we could call this like stochastic incitement to violence or stochastic something else, and I would be just as okay with the term. It just seems like stochastic terrorism is what we ended up going along with. Terrorism is an incredibly nebulous thing. Every state has a different definition of it. Nation states have different definitions of it for a variety of reasons. It doesn't mean the same thing to any group of people. People that aren't terrorists, like the Mujahideen that was supported past Carter's administration, can become terrorists when they do things that we don't like. Some people consider the U.S. a terrorist nation. Like, it's the whole idea of like the word is just so silly to me. I just don't like it. I don't think it gets us anywhere. And yeah, there you go.
Lucas.
Yeah, first of all, I want to thank Pisco for reminding me why I don't want to be a lawyer, because that was so boring to listen to. But stochastic terrorism. It's such a broad term that it encompasses a lot of things. I wasn't sure that I didn't know this was going to become the trial of destiny by Pisco. So I mean, if I knew that, I would have watched all of the things that Pisco accused Destiny of, so I could, follow along the conversation. Some of us have a life outside of Twitch. So the idea that Kyle Rittenhouse is being accused of things that he didn't do or hasn't been proven that he did. He went there, to whatever reason he went to, but the reason that he shot those people was in defense of property. And the fact that the media is, promoting a narrative that says that he did those things on purpose, I think it definitely would fall in the category of Jesus Christ, I can't say that word. Stochastic terrorism. Yeah.
Fabian, you go next. Or Scott, excuse me.
Yeah, so in the interest of not clout chasing, I will tailor my portion of this discussion to everyone but Destiny. Yeah, so I think first thing we need to look at is, obviously, I'm kind of two minds of this issue, right? I'm honestly kind of somewhere in between, because obviously someone like Vivian that like will literally put you on her list of reactionaries and advocates for violence regularly is a problem, right? And if she was a right winger, she'd be banned off of every platform instantaneously. But at the same, and we could say the same thing about, some of the rhetoric that our right-wing politicians like Trump have gone in, right? So, I mean, obviously there's kind of an issue here. And so when I think about the issue, I honestly don't think the issue is that we should create a new label, right? For people who are, kind of advocating violence and advocating political beliefs or advocating like really negative or derogatory or dehumanizing things. But they're not direct calls for violence or action, right? I'm not saying like, shoot this guy at 2 p.m. on this street corner. That's where he goes and gets his coffee, right? I'm just saying like, Republicans are evil and we hate them, or, Democrats are evil, et cetera, et cetera. I think the bigger issue here that really kind of goes tangential to this question is the fact that our journalistic ethics have gone away. right? Like it used to be a thing, and it's still a thing if you go to if you take like a mass communications class in college, that like you're supposed to have 2 unnamed sources and then someone that's going to go on the record, right? Like that shit just disappeared with corporate press kind of getting money from this political balkanization of the American population. And so I'm not so sure that the issue per se are these people that we're trying to label with this kind of like newer definition of terrorism, this more, this probability based terrorism, but more so the fact that we don't have good information out there. I think this is more a problem of social media and a lack of journalistic ethics, to where when people hear wild, crazy shit, they can't just go and look up a news article and like just get the good details and realize like maybe that's crazy because of this reason and this reason and this reason, right? So I think that there's kind of a parallel conversation to be had here, and I don't care about Vivian. She's trash.
All right. Vivian's a wonderful human being. I love her so much. Shout out to you, McSwain and Wolf. All right. Let's go to Gappy V.
Wow.
Okay. I guess in regards to the I don't know, our Destiny effort post that was made by Pisco, I think we're kind of getting a bit too hung up over the issue of like, I think Destiny using the word terrorism is what's really getting at it. And I think we had this talk a couple of days ago when we were talking about the Federal Rules of Evidence. When we look at the Federal Rules of Evidence 704 and 704A, just because somebody uses the term terrorism or negligence, for example, just because they use that word doesn't mean they're literally embracing it as this person is literally like ISIS or something like that. I think we're focusing a bit too much on the fact that the word terrorism was used and not the overall context of that opinion or that lay opinion as stochastic terrorism, right? It's not, I don't think he's going to be alleging, and I'm not sure what happened with this Vivian conversation, but I doubt he's going to be alleging that Vivian's literally trying to create like the next ISIS or whatever. But in terms of the actual stochastic terrorism definition, getting back to the actual topic rather than what was going on earlier, I think stochastic terrorism is totally a fine definition. You know, if people are trying to indirectly advocate for violence, we should have a way to be able to call them out for that. And I think when we use that definition, we have to understand that there are extents, right? It's not just, oh, so you literally just called him a terrorist. What the fuck, dude? It's about whether or not the extent is really fucking egregious, right? Because I think there's a huge difference between somebody retweeting, oh, the Rittenhouse judge is using some ringtone that sounds like it might potentially be from a Trump rally, versus someone saying something a lot worse about like, oh, who's going to be getting the wall, or who's going to be doing this non-TOS friendly thing to our parents one day. I think there's a huge worlds apart there, and I think being able to use that term of stochastic terrorism in the context of defining an extent to which somebody's advocating for violence is really important. And I don't think we should be getting hung up over whether one individual used the word stochastic terrorism on one individual when somebody else like Donald Trump is probably using stochastic terrorism to a far, far worse extent.
Hey, last but not least, our Dark Lord and Savior, DB.
Okay, so I've been thinking about this since the other night, actually. And what I've kind of concluded is that I think Twitch is full of mentally unstable people who ingest the opinions of charismatic demagogues through like 8-hour streams, and then go around and watch other charismatic demagogues react to the latest round of blood sports and relationship drama involving people they've developed like parasocial relationships with. So if we're going to buy the common lefty position that someone like Lauren Southern or Stefan Molyneux can be held responsible for Christchurch because the shooter might have heard like a great replacement video at some point, shouldn't we also believe that Destiny can be held responsible for vigilante justice against rioters if we find that the perpetrators have watched his streams at some point? If Vosh gets done demonizing conservatives for the day and raids Prime, and Prime is platforming an insane anarchist who dehumanizes and advocates for the violent suppression of their opposition all the fucking time, right? Aren't they both like at some level responsible if one of the hundreds or thousands of people watching goes out and acts on the recommendation someday? Shouldn't we believe that people like Hassan, who say that Rittenhouse was always going to get off because he's white, or that Jacob Blake was unjustifiably shot in the back by racist cops, couldn't they also be held responsible for riots that might happen if Rittenhouse gets off without a homicide charge? What about Fanatics' tacit endorsement of violence against white people who say the N-word? Or Connor's tacit endorsement of police goon squads that rough up people who resist arrest? Should any of us be platformed? Like, what's the fucking line here? I think that if we're going to say that these people are guilty of some kind of like stochastic terrorism or some kind of like incitement to violence for these kind of statements, then hey, if that's the line we're drawing, then I don't think there's a good case to be made for most of us to be on this platform.
Yeah, Gappy and Destiny have a problem with terrorism and not stochastic terrorism. What Doobie just gave you the point. What could be more nebulous than the word that engulfs Hassan, a word that engulfs potentially Destiny? Because I haven't seen how that he's distinguishing now his own comments from Vivian's comments. What is the definitional criteria for stochastic terrorism? Should there be a definitional criteria for stochastic terrorism, and why does it apply to Vivian and not?
I mean, I would
Destiny?
defend the comments that I made earlier. That when you've like facilitated or when you've created a situation,
not in relation to other to like common examples or to Lauren Southern as an abstract term. How do I know? How do I fight you on Vivian's label of a stochastic terrorism?
on how would you
Without a
So
rela-
how
without-
could you not
without reference to
appreciate
ex-
how great of a speech Doobie gave? Like,
wait,
No,
will you say without reference
without
to what
reference
she
to
said?
an example or without reference to Doobie made reference to Lauren Southern's comments, and we're talking about the definition in relation to others, but in abstract terms.
So my question would be like,
what does it mean?
Yeah. So if I were to look at the totality of Vivian's messaging, is Vivian essentially saying that there is no way to remedy a current situation or current set of problems beyond violent action? That's my question.
Then you misunderstood Vivian's point, because either you're referencing the fact that she's spreading misinformation, and if that's enough to be called a stochastic terrorist, then I don't know. And most of the country is responsible for stochastic terrorism. So I'm assuming it's not the fact that she's spreading misinformation.
No, spreading misinformation on it could, but not that. I don't know if that on its own would do it. But my issue with Vivian wasn't that. My issue with Vivian is that
She's advocating for violence in that specific situation in which there are people come in and speak,
yeah.
right?
So one was the idea that people that show up, that you have a right to basically force them out with the threat of murder or murder eventually to get, or killing, I should say, to be less loaded. That you're allowed to kill people essentially that come to protest to an area where you don't want them protesting. Number one, and then number two, the undermining of our entire judicial system, saying that all of it is broken and fundamentally it won't work, and we should never expect anything from it.
That was couched in the first part, right? The part about violence was couched in qualifications and depended upon a set of predicate facts, which are exceptional.
I disagree.
They're exceptional.
No.
Do you think the Black Lives Matter protest was an exceptional protest?
No, I don't believe that Vivian couched it. I think that she couched it the same way that ethno-nationalists couch it when they try to say, like, I want to get rid of all black people in this country, but I don't want to do it violently. I just want to pay them. But when you run down that line, okay, well, what if they don't accept your payments? What if they don't want to leave the country? What if, then eventually, like, okay, sure.
Was Fabian Scott engaged in it? I mean, Fabian Scott all but said he's advocating for violent revolution in the United States. So you think that he's engaged in stochastic terrorism?
Yeah, for sure. I'd probably say that, yeah.
What does this
When
word
did I say
mean
that?
When
Okay,
you're creating a
when the fuck did I
situation,
say I was arguing
When
for
you're-
violent revolution?
when
Don't
you're-
bullshit.
when you're
Don't
creating-
bullshit.
when-
friendly shit you
Don't
want to do?
bullshit.
when you're creating a situation
Don't be a pussy.
where the
I love you, but don't be
only
a pussy.
option is violence,
Get the
that's
fuck
the
outta
only way that you can seriously enact whatever agenda that you think is like morally righteous and needs to be done. Yeah, I would argue that you're engaged in a form of
How
stochastic
nebulous is it? I mean, this word is going to gather.
Hold on. You can't just say nebulous and pretend that's an argument. If you want to claim that, my definition is pretty precise. If you want to push me on a specific example, that's fine. But I've given you a clear example. We can test things against that example. Don't call it nebulous. It's not nebulous at all.
Well, then it's too inclusive. It's over-inclusive.
Like I argued
not-
your definition of terrorist was. What do you mean? How does
Pisco,
that?
But you
Pisco.
can't criticize me for my term for being too over-inclusive and then provide an over-inclusive term
Why?
yourself.
Okay.
It doesn't
What am I?
help us.
Give me an example
Hey,
then of one
Destiny,
thing that I'm
can you
inclusive.
define it? I want to write down the definition. Can we just get that so that we can stop saying it's nebulous? I want to have it concrete.
Sure.
I have that he says that when the
It's
only
actually. Go ahead.
when your rhetoric is such that the only possible response of people is violence, and in that, notice what is missing from that definition. There's no proclivity part of that definition where there's a likelihood or a tendency for your audience to be receptive to that message, for you to even have a platform for which to speak. If you said this privately, if I said this to you privately, Destiny, that I think that this is justified, do you think my private communication to you is stochastic terrorism?
Yeah, we can argue that it's private stochastic
hold
terrorism,
on.
but we can
Private
even
stochastic terrorism.
Sure, but we can even hold on.
Do
Wait,
you agree
hold
with
on.
that definition?
What?
Do you agree with that
Yes.
definition?
Okay. But like we could even argue that if you don't like the term, because it sounds like you don't disagree that this is a thing that should exist in like have some way to address it.
I disagree as applied to Vivian, and I think there should be.
It just sounds like you okay, but like let's say for instance that we're having a private conversation, a one-on-one private conversation, and you're telling me this is bullshit. I want to be a professional StarCraft 3 player. I can't because my mom and dad won't let me on the computer. And I say, listen, bro, they're not going to let you go to the library. They're not going to give you your laptop back. If you want to do this, you have to fucking kill your mom and dad, right? In a video game.
Because you're missing two components. You're missing two components.
Okay,
because terrorism.
So you can try to expand this or say, oh, you're missing blah 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 blah. But I'm giving you a clear example where you're because initially, the reason I'm giving you the example is earlier you said, well, you're telling me that in a private one-on-one conversation you call it stochastic terrorism. I just gave you an example of a private converation where yes, I would say that's stochastic terrorism.
But but nobody who understands the core concept of terrorism applied across all definition is a broader ideological goal.
Speculation.
A broader ideological goal, a broader religious, political motive that isn't present in your private violence example. Now, on the margin, that's going to be fuzzy, but there are clear cases of...
there is no universally agreed upon definition of terrorism.
I understand that. No, but core to the concept of terrorism, I think everyone here would agree that there is some substantive ideological motive beyond mere private revenge or mere private.
Here's the thing.
It's ideologically motivated.
Even if I read off of the fucking FBI site, okay, it's violent criminal acts committed by individuals and or groups to further ideological goals stemming from domestic influences such as political, religious, social.
This is terrorism, not stochastic terrorism.
Hold on, I'm not done. Okay, political, religious, social, racial, or environmental. I could almost any possible fucking thing.
No, you couldn't. No, you couldn't.
Give me an example of one.
100% could.
If I run over someone because they had sex with my wife, is that terrorism?
Let's say that we went onto your laptop afterwards and we found out that you were posting on a whole bunch of incel forums. Does it become terrorism?
It's fuzzy margins. Yeah, if you can understand. So
this is kind of ridiculous.
No, wait, hold on. This is process.
I understand.
You're just calling out Destiny for fucking clout.
No.
Hijacking
okay, no, stop. Wait, hold on. Pisco.
The only reason you're doing this shit is so that people will react to Pisco.
I don't care. I'm not.
Destiny,
I don't have
more fucking views.
This is my job. This is my job. No, I actually am engaging with this conversation.
Okay, hold on, Pisco. Yeah, Pisco. Wait, hold on. I want to understand your position. So, someone like Anwar, what's his name? Anwar al-Awlaki, this dude who's making videos to encourage people in the United States and in Europe to go out and murder people at random, right? Like encouraging like jihadi violence.
Yeah.
Do you think that person couldn't be held responsible for those people who went out and did exactly what he was encouraging them to do?
But what you're missing there, and what's missing from the definition that Destiny gave, are two concepts. Before I bring them up, I want to just address the elephant in the room of categories. Everything is fuzzy on the ends. Define a sandwich, right? Tell me, what are the definitional criteria of a sandwich? You know, a coffee maker might not be a sandwich. That's a clear case of not being a sandwich. And now when you start to get to a hot dog, it's less clear about what is and what is not a hot dog.
That's okay, though, because those types of categories don't have moral weight or implication behind them. So I'm okay with sandwich being fuzzy. But when you want to bring up a new term and you want to call it terrorism, and you want to either, no, I'm not saying you're saying this, but for some people that want to have additional charges brought forth, or in your case, where you just want to have like a greater moral condemnation brought forth, well, now we actually need to define this a little bit more. The delineation becomes important when it's a moral issue and not just a category of what is a
yours is way too over-inclusive, because you just said
it is too inclusive, and it's really insane because Destiny, I didn't see you like raising up this like claim that we need to make sure that we're really, really clear when they brought up RICO charges against R. Kelly. Not that nigga wasn't guilty, not that he didn't deserve to do prison, but we know what RICO charges are, and that seemed like that wasn't the proper application there. Furthermore,
what was he doing?
Furthermore, when you make the statement that your definition is when your rhetoric is such that the only possible remedy is violence, can you point me to something that Vivian said that clearly denoted that clearly like the only possible remedy was violence? Because even when she's talking about how corrupt our judicial system is and how unfair it is, all of those things you could easily say, so we need to do a lot. We need to make sure that we have higher voting mobility in order to ensure that these kind of things can be done. We gotta make sure we don't re-elect these judges. So
how is that bullshit?
Fanatic. Wait, hold on, Fanatic. I don't know if you missed the stream. I don't know if you missed the stream on Saturday, but this is not what we're talking about.
I watched the entire thing. So anyway, all I'm saying is there's nothing that you're saying, and unless Destiny can point me to something specifically where the only possible remedy is violence, then it sounds like this is an improper usage. So Destiny, you have the floor. What
Oh
did
my
she
God, thank
say
you.
specifically?
So, okay, I don't remember every word, but I'm going to say some things about Vivi's positions, and I don't think she would disagree with them, right? The issue is when you start to say what you said before, that these systems are broken, blah, 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 blah. If you were to go on and say things like, well, we should vote for different people, blah, 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 somebody like Vivian would say, no, voting doesn't do anything. No, you can't fix these institutionally. No, we need pressure from the outside. None of these things will be fixed with them because capitalism supports capitalism, power supports power. That's the issue at some point, and then that's why they get into eventually justifying things like riots against private property, because they're saying, well, there was no other alternative. Voting does nothing. It's worthless. It's a waste of time. When you've engaged in that line of rhetoric, then the only option left is violence. That's literally all there is left.
In fact,
I have a legitimate question on
no,
this
stop,
topic.
stop,
I
wait,
feel
no,
like-
stop. In
I
fact,
have a legitimate
she was
question on
explicitly endorsing violence. She was saying that if
Yes.
someone shows up in your town with a Blue Lives Matter sticker, right? You should force them out of your town, and that if they resist your force against them, you might need to kill them. Right, so don't dance around. This is exactly what she was saying.
No,
I didn't say that. You're right.
Qualified
You're right.
how?
You're right.
Real question, right? To the people that disagree with this, the usage of this term. What in the fuck do you call people who advocate for violence, right? Who consistently dehumanize groups of people, but do not use direct or actionable violence, right? That do not specifically themselves go out and commit the violence, or you can't prove that per se, right? It wouldn't surprise me if that was happening, right, under some black bloc shit, right? But let's just say, right, that they're not actually committing the violence, but they're dehumanizing groups of people. They're calling for violence. They're saying violence is the only possible solution we have to this problem, right? But they're not giving you a specific date and time. What term would you use?
I'm happy to answer that question.
Yeah, I'm legitimately.
The two concepts you're missing is one, there needs to be some statistical proclivity of that happening. We don't just call people who have no audience, speaking to no one, or speaking privately to someone who's not receptive to that message, stochastic terrorists.
Right,
We're
no,
talking
no,
about
no,
on
from the
people on Twitch.
question.
Let him finish.
People
I
on
don't
Twitch
wanna
with an
question
audience.
here. Holy shit.
I'm showing you ways to distinguish. And then secondly, we need to reject Destiny's invitation to absurdity, which is that any call to private violence, even no matter how private, could somehow be considered stochastic terrorism, no matter the ideological.
Can I address
Answer the
this?
question.
You're avoiding.
No,
You're
no, no, no,
avoiding.
no, fuck
You're
this.
avoiding.
You always say the keywords.
Hold on.
Ideological.
No, hold on. No, you're avoiding. No,
Stop
counter,
talking
counter,
pivoting.
counter,
Just
counter,
answer the
counter,
question.
counter,
Yeah,
shut
okay.
up, counter,
Oh,
counter,
oh.
hug yourself, counter, go paint your fucking Barbies, okay? Pisco. We're talking about people on Twitch, on a platform in front of hundreds or thousands of people, not someone talking to their friend in a corner somewhere, right? So these people.
What I'm saying is the way you distinguish it is what I just said. So there's two things that you look at the Twitch person, right? Is their audience such that they're super receptive? There's a danger here. Their message is such that it could be interpreted that way. You look at the quality, the likelihood
The
that
answer,
their
the answer
message.
to all those things is yes.
Okay,
In this
You're
specific
just
scenario,
bringing up
the
Destiny
answer is
and the issues with
absolutely
the
yes.
I think
There are
I
plenty
think
of
you
people in
guys-
chat right fucking now who think that people with Blue Lives Matter stickers are Nazis.
I
right?
think
And
you
they
guys
either
are
resist Nazis or
insane.
violence.
I think you guys are insane that you think that Vivian's comments, unless you want to say her attitude in the aggregate,
Are you
is
gonna
one that
answer the
would.
fucking question, or are you just gonna
I'm-
dodge?
I'm answering the question. So she.
No, you're
Hey,
fucking not.
Pisco,
Answer the
it's
goddamn
really
question.
simple. It's
He is. No,
The
no.
answer is
I
endorsement.
sorry. I am answering the question.
Endorsement. Endorsement. That's the answer. Endorsement. Endorsement is the answer.
It's not the answer. Proclivity is important here, and the likelihood of the tendency of your actions to cause others to commit that violence is important here. And so
Okay, then
Vivi says,
give an arbitrary amount of proclivity, and then tell me what you would call that.
no. There are clear
please
cases
get in?
and there are unclear cases. That's the same with any
Please answer
category.
the dang
then-
question.
so that-
I'm answering the question
You're
on.
not.
I
No,
am.
you're not.
I'm
Answer
trying
the
to
question.
frame it. It's really simple.
So
There's a
Vivian-
one-word answer. Is there a title? He's asking for a title. I don't care about all of the qualifications. I don't care how you get to the title. What is the title?
Title. What do you mean
That's
title?
he's
What title? I don't understand what you
Shut
mean.
the fuck
Here's the
up.
question.
What would you call someone like Anwar al-Awlaki who was making videos
You
encouraging
could
people
call
to
him
go
a
on
stochastic terrorist. No, you can't.
Okay,
You can't.
there it is.
I have no-
Okay.
You're okay with the term.
I never.
Okay, okay. Oh my God, shut up. Everyone shut up. Great. All right, look. Because he's going to explode. I'm going to let counterpoints in, and then Gappy. Don't worry. All right, we'll get these answers out of people.
Y'all are about to make me fucking ableist again. Holy shit. So, Pisco. Very specifically, it would not be stochastic because stochastic basically says that it's not direct. It's nebulous intentionally so you can motivate an audience in order to do
What
something.
is not stochastic? It wouldn't. You said it wouldn't with reference to what?
Anwar al-Awlaki would not be stochastic because he is making specific prescriptions in order to commit
So you
terrorism.
disagree with Destiny because Destiny was talking about a direct message where it was very explicit.
I just want to speak for myself. I don't want to speak for anybody
Okay.
else. Okay. So Anwar al-Awlaki would not be stochastic because he's being very specific with what he wants to do. When it comes to stochastic terrorism, I think, as I acknowledge, there's a spectrum to fucking terrorism and fucking violence and all that kind of shit. The reason why I am comfortable saying that about Vivian, actually, I love Vivian. I like the fact that she owns her bullshit and she just fucking says it instead of fucking dodging left, right, and fucking center. One of the things that she said was that in the past she's participated in anti-fascist fucking movements. They greeted people at the fucking train station. They got into a fucking scrap. They kicked their ass and they sent them home. And she thinks that it's appropriate to have non-state actors engaging in political violence in order to achieve a certain amount of ends. If I was to take the definition of terrorism, which is basically non-state actors very specifically engaging in violence towards political ends for civilians, the first word is met. And then for stochastic, where it's vague and nebulous and not intentional and specific, if that's also met, where it's a generalization about things, I understand that like Mixed Vivian Wolf is not the same as fucking Anwar al-Awlaki, but at the same time, both words have been met. It's a question of spectrum, and we have to be nuanced. If you don't want to see the state clamp down on people like Mixed Vivian Wolf, I agree with you. I think there's room in here for speech and opportunity and all that kind of stuff. But one of the things that I thought was kind of missing from your point was the fact that like intent doesn't necessarily matter if there isn't a result, if the intent still existed in the first place. And you were saying because a person has like stochastic violence in mind, but they don't achieve the goal, therefore they're admonished of the attempt. I don't agree with that at all. If they have
never
intention to
said
commit
that.
violence.
When did I ever say that? I never said that.
No,
You just
then
said
don't-
that. Just
then don't
to be
worry
clear,
about it. Just say
I don't
what I said.
reject. I don't reject the term stochastic terrorism. I'm rejecting your definitional criteria, which does not include some statistical likelihood or some greater ideological purpose. Those two things must
Why?
be key. Otherwise, we're
Because he's
way
trying to
over
frame
inclusive.
it in a legal definition
No,
instead of a
Fabian.
colloquial expression.
Fabian, as you see now, you just can't ask Pisco questions like that. He won't actually answer them. So
I just answered it.
The answer is to your
you
question,
want-
Fabian.
you're
The
just
answer to
saying
your
it's too
question
nebulous.
is the idea. The idea is for the people who are doing it directly, you just call them terrorists.
I
That's
think
what
the
it is.
yeah, I think or rather than terrorists, I think Pisco. So okay, so hold on, let me turn the temperature down. Right. So Pisco's problem is it sounds like you're essentially saying that you can't really call this an indirect incitement to violence if the likelihood of any violence actually occurring isn't there.
Zero.
Right. But my problem then is, aren't we really
that's
just
zero.
basically copy pasting the definition then of incitement to violence?
No, because the other component which you're missing from your definition is the same thing that's present in the terrorism definition. It's not just violence or crime. It's even though there are edge cases, I submit to you, mixed motive cases, an ideological purpose there. That has to be present in all these definitions of terrorism. Some greater fundamental societal ideological purpose needs to be present there. And so not. And
Okay,
so
wait.
that
So yeah,
exists-
can I just wait?
that
Can I just? I just
exists
want to.
in
I just want a really
motivation.
clear, really clear question.
Yeah.
Really clear question. By that definition, then, would you be comfortable saying that every single BLM riot was a terrorist riot? Because that was something.
Are we talking
clear with
stochastic terrorism?
No,
or-
no, no,
or
no, no.
terrorism?
Terrorist. Those were terrorists in the United
If it's
States.
violence,
Yes.
Yeah. So if it's violence for a greater ideological end,
Mm-hmm.
I have no problem labeling it terrorist.
Okay, so then-
just to keep in mind, I just want to get this out.
Okay.
I think we all must agree on this. The definition of terrorism cannot depend on the substantive rightness or wrongness of the underlying motive position, right? Everyone agrees with that. Like, we cannot
course.
say that it's terrorism only
Well,
when
but
it's
the problem
people.
is colloquially that
Correct.
seems to be how it goes. But yeah, I understand that. But so then
So,
at that
your
point,
definition of terrorism cannot. And
I agree. I never said it
has
did.
to
I
tread
never
the
said
same
it did.
line that I
Of
did,
course,
where we're
100%.
going to call some stuff we like.
But
okay.
the thing is then at that point, literally every single riot, because most of these have social causes. I think it's maybe there are some that don't, but for the most part, then every single riot then is an act of terrorism, or at least domestic
Not
terrorism.
necessarily. I mean, if it's an act of, so you can.
Okay,
fight
how about
in
let's
the-
say
in a
every
specific-
every single riot that's caused due to social unrest, we can all say that these are all acts
Not necessarily. I mean, I could see an artful argument that this was not an act in pursuit of an ideological aim. It was just an act of rage, or let's say for the looting, this was not an act of. For an ideological purpose, this was just someone taking advantage of heightened tensions to just steal stuff. So there can be cases where it doesn't fit it because the specific person does not have that ideological purpose that needs to be present. Does that make sense?
No.
Hold on.
That's why
And the broader movement. So you would still label the broader movement as something that's terrorist, even
No,
if
no, I'm not as comfortable labeling like broad swaths of people. That's why I'm not comfortable saying that like in the aggregate, Vivian contributes to an overall attitude that says there's no other option left but violence, because it doesn't feel fair to attribute sort of collective punishment to someone who's part of a movement for which there are a lot of members who certainly are fit that definition.
Collectively punish all of them.
Pisco, both your criteria are met with Vivian.
No,
right?
because the proclivity.
Yes.
No, the proclivity definition is not there.
Yes. Wait, hold on. Yes, because
You're making it legal.
If this person is coming onto panels over and over for months, right? Coming onto panels regularly. And making these same kind of statements over and over again, there's a greater than 0% chance that someone in this audience of fucking terminally online weirdos has like the fucking combination of personality characteristics that might put them on the verge of going over the edge and going out and doing some lone wolf shit.
You're misunderstanding. So I think we would all agree that the point that the quote stochastic terrorism is committed is at the point the statement is made, correct?
Yes.
And so it's not post hoc. Right. And so to the extent that you think at the time Vivian's making the statements, those particular comments are likely to incite any particular person to violence.
No,
the odds of that, can I finish? So the odds of that are very extremely low. She's on a panel where everyone, including myself, is fighting against her in front of mostly libs and left-wing people who are not, I don't think have the propensity to violence anyway, on Twitch, on a platform. I really think that the odds of that happening are extremely low given her comments, and the fact that her comments are couched in qualifications and predicate facts that do not present themselves commonly in society.
We can't say any of
Gappy hasn't got a chance to talk, so Gappy, please.
We can't say that any of this is non-zero though. Yeah, she's getting completely. I'm not aware of all of her fucking comments, but obviously she's getting pressed on by the rest of the fucking panel. But there's no way we can completely say it's.
What about Destiny's comments? What about Destiny?
I feel like
is Destiny a stochastic terrorist? Why not? Why isn't he?
Yes.
We have to.
Yes.
Destiny,
you
The
should.
totality of circumstances depends on what he's advocating
Destiny,
for.
Destiny, are you a stochastic terrorist?
The problem is.
Wait, no, I want to hear his answer.
The problem is,
I want to hear his answer.
I've been trying to talk for at least half an hour. I'm gonna get my fucking answer in, and then you can ask him whatever the fuck you want, okay? I gotta do my own fucking cloud chasing here. I'm the most desperate for content here. I need to fucking get in here, all right? Because the problem is, I feel like, ironically enough, we're looking for different other factors that are to determine the propensity of the likelihood that they're actually going to be causing some sort of issue and the ideological strength of those beliefs and those motives, right? Yet at the same time, at the same fucking breath, we're looking, and I'm going to pull out case law here, we're looking for some type of term yellow versus City of Chicago shit, where there has to be fighting words, or we have to have some specific type of statement that's a specific incitement of violence, and only then, when we have that type of direct evidence, we can call it stochastic terrorism, rather than looking at the totality of the circumstances overall.
I submit to you, Gappy, that anything that Viv did, a Destiny statement qualifies for. And I want to hear Destiny's, by his own criteria, isn't that comment you made a form of stochastic terrorism?
I think you could argue. I think you could say, yeah, sure, yeah, for sure.
Wait, hold on, wait. No, don't do that.
Okay, so
Wait,
Destiny,
don't say. I think you
wait.
can say yes.
Hold on, no,
What
wait,
do you think?
hold on, whoa. Don't ever say, don't say that, okay? I don't need somebody to tell me what I can or cannot bite the bullet on. As Pisco said earlier,
Justin.
I think that we can say that there are forms of terrorism, whatever we want to define that term as. I think it's different, that we would all probably support. For instance, like the fucking revolution of the United States, right? Is arguably these were early on acts of terrorism, or any type of violent protest that happened, and the Civil Rights Act was arguably like acts of terrorism, however we want to define terrorist act or whatever, right? I wouldn't use the term, but if we were going to, sure. We can also say that there are forms of stochastic terrorism where, like, hey, you know, there are certain groups of people in certain circumstances. We can say like domestic violence victims, or people that have been kidnapped by somebody. We're like, hey, you know, if somebody's taking you to a location, you don't have contact with anybody else. Like sometimes all you can do is fight back. We can argue, yeah, sure, these might be forms of stochastic terrorism for sure. I'm not saying that
so
stochastic terrorism.
stochastic terrorism? I mean,
What?
Yeah, you did.
Yeah.
You did.
Okay, hold on. I'm not trying to say that in and of itself it's necessarily a bad thing. We can take one step further and we can analyze, like, is this like a good call to violence or not? Because I think there are righteous and good calls to violence. I think we all believe that. However, I don't think in the case where we're saying all of our U.S. institutions have fundamentally failed, so we need large swaths of Americans killing other large swaths of Americans. If you want to say that that's on the same level as saying, I believe that people should have a right to defend their property. I mean, you can make those comparisons if you want, but I think that I have much better ground to stand on than Vivian, who's essentially giving you carte blanche to murder every fucking conservative in the United States.
Dude, and can I?
Okay,
You and Trump are in the
but
same
to be
boat.
clear, but to be clear, Destiny, when you made that comment about the rioters, you said they have your blessing to go out and do that. So
The rioters?
So I don't.
I said that people.
Yeah.
I said that people whose private property is being destroyed in a video game would have my support in
That's not what I
whatever.
said.
Yeah,
Dude,
wait,
I
hold on,
about to ban
wait,
you
hold
from
on.
my
That is
Gooning server,
that is
okay?
exactly what I said.
You
If
said
go back,
you said
if you go
white
back, hold on,
redneck
hold on,
militia
hold on,
dudes
hold on, hold on, hold on.
mowing down dipshit
Hold on.
protesters.
Oh, no.
You said they'd have your blessing.
Hold on. I'm not here to answer for a 15-second clip. If you want to go back and watch the video, it is painfully obvious what I'm talking about. My entire argument was that if the cops aren't going to show up, if nobody else is going to help you, if you want to defend your property, I believe you should have the right to do so. It wasn't about indiscriminately killing protesters. If you think that, you're either retarded or you only watched the 15-second clip.
That's not what I'm saying.
That is exactly what you just said. You just said that.
No, that's not true.
No,
I said okay. Initially, I said rioters. No, when I say dipshit protesters, I said dipshit protesters because that's what you said. Those are your words.
You get mad at
That's the
somebody
word
for
you
literally
said.
quoting your
Wait, you said if that means okay. I know that you were talking about how the riots and the burning of buildings and all this shit needed to stop. I agree with you, right? But when you said that if that means that white redneck militia dudes need to go out and mow down dipshit protesters, right? If they think they can torch buildings at 10 p.m., right? Then they have your blessing. You said that. Right, so I think
in the context of should people be able to defend their private property when other people are invading their shit and blowing it up and the cops are going to do it? Yeah, that's my personal belief.
Okay, so
it's almost like we look at the totality of the circumstances of a statement rather than one 15-second clip. I don't know why we keep trying to find one single fucking statement to go off of somebody instead of actually looking at fucking everything.
Shut up. So do you think it'd be reasonable, right, for somebody to say that if someone did go out and mow down a bunch of dipshit protesters who were burning down buildings at 10 p.m., if that did happen, and they found that person had listened to your stream at some point, they could say that you're responsible for this.
If somebody would have listened to a 15-second clip and that's all they took, then yeah, sure, you can argue that like my rhetoric in that case played into it to some extent. Sure, I definitely got really spicy in that conversation. That's fine, but just don't walk around pretending like I'm trying to say that you should go down and murder protesters, right?
I don't think that.
Sure, I could phrase it better, but I do support people that want to defend their private property, even if it's not necessarily legal in the United States. I support people
even if it's stochastic terrorism.
Can we? Hold on, stop. You keep trying to think this is an own Pisco. I also support terrorism of women who are being fucking raped and murdered in Afghanistan by the fucking Taliban. Okay, so when you keep saying like, oh, well, you support terrorism, that's not an argument. You're not making a good argument. You're not getting an own. You're not getting a good point across. There are absolutely times where I think you can justify large acts of violence against certain types of state entities or certain types of non-state entities.
Don't come at me for January 6th. So don't come at me for January 6th.
I'm not coming at you for January 6th. I think that was a horrible thing. I think that was all horrible as well. What do you mean? I even am saying on here.
I think it was yeah.
I think that Trump engaged in a form of stochastic terrorism. I just don't like the individual labeling of people as terrorists. I just think it's an arbitrary, dumb term. I mean, every state has a different definition. It doesn't mean anything. It's a totally different thing.
Yeah. So Connor.
I'm gonna jerk off a bunch of ghost sticks. Holy shit, motherfuckers! So okay,
record for us,
like
please.
15 fucking minutes. Yeah, Doobie, you are banned from my Gooning server. You are no longer allowed to listen to grown men jerking off. Okay?
That's fucked up.
So, you cut me off one too many times. You should have fucking listened to me. So, anyways, Pisco. Back when we were trying to parse out like multiple fucking definitions in the things, and we were using BLM, which was an interesting example, particularly because it would be uncomfortable for people to label the BLM movement as a terrorist movement, despite there being some violent elements of it, but there also being like a broader ideological movement that's seeking political change within the country. I think that was an interesting point. But to separate out that point, there's sub-factions within the BLM movement. There's general protesters who are using peaceful protest in order to advocate for those goals. We would not call those people terrorists. There are some people who are calling to violence, which I would say they are using stochastic terrorism while maybe not being terrorists themselves. And then there was the one guy who shot like 7 cops to death in Dallas, who I do think was a ideologically motivated individual who was non-state, who used ideology as an excuse for violence and engaged in violence against people in an indiscriminate way. I would call that individual a terrorist. But to kind of parlay this back into the fucking conversation, I'm sure there were tens of thousands of people who were talking about killing cops as vengeance for unjustified police homicides. I'm sure there were tens of thousands of them. And would I call them individually terrorists? No. But would I say that they were engaging in stochastic terrorism because eventually it would culminate into a violent eruption? I would say, yeah, they're contributing to that. And I think that's the definitional parse out that we're trying to get to.
I think that's fair, Connor. I think that's a fair point you make. Just be careful about this sort of aggregate effect element to it, because I think that aggregate effect, where every member of that aggregate is now a stochastic terrorist, could be applied to like Trump's base. and in which case, 30% of the country is stochastic terrorists.
I think we're
Because
way,
they're
I think we're way
Can't
too
we be
fixated.
concerned about that?
I think we're way too fixated on this idea that like if you're like a stochastic terrorist is the worst fucking thing in the world. I don't think that it's like I think it's probably worse to steal from a fucking grocery store than it is to be a quote unquote stochastic terrorist, depending on scale. That we just need some way,
scale.
we need some term to describe what it is. If we don't like the term stochastic terrorism,
I'm
that's
fine
fine.
with it.
But there has to be something in between. This is just my random speech, and I'm literally telling you to murder somebody. There is this group of rhetoric in the middle where you're undermining institutions, where you're telling people that all hope is lost, and the only action that they have is violence at that point. When you're engaged in that form, we need a word to describe it. It sounds like, Pisco, you're like really hung up on the term stochastic.
No, I'm
if you want
fine-
to pick
no.
another term, that's fine. But this
That's
idea
fine. That's fine.
No,
That's fine.
but
No,
it's
I-
not fine because you're disagreeing because you're saying that like you need to be able to show there's actually clearly when there's a good chance that somebody in an audience might enact some form of violence. But that's not true. We're never going to know that. Nobody can ever know that, right? For fucking what Connor's saying, it might have been that the guy that went and killed the fucking cops, he might have just heard some fucking 100 viewer YouTuber who said it. He's like, you know what, this really bothers me, and then he went and did it, right? We don't know that. This is how the nature of online communication and large form communication works.
That's actually the
more
nature of
uncertain,
stochastic
the more
terrorism.
the more
I'm
uncertain
like,
you
this
are, the more uncertain you are, the more over-inclusive it is. And so just be
Right,
careful
so
about that
I-
term's
Okay,
utility.
hold on.
You're being really
I wanna-
inclusive.
I think we're really.
the fact that it's not going to have. It's not going to consider that fact.
Okay, wait 1 second. I think
I'm-
we're really focused on Vivian.
No,
and
no,
I don't think. Wait, I don't think there's a reason to be because we're
No,
totally
I'm
missing out.
like, I'm just
We're totally
gonna
missing
let
out
you
on.
speak
We're
at this point
totally
'cause there's
missing
no
out.
moderating occurring.
We're totally missing out on the
just
HQ,
gonna speak.
right? Which is
No,
the
stop.
HQ. We're totally missing out on the HQ, right? Which is someone like Hassan,
So now
right?
there's-
On his platform, right, saying that Kyle Rittenhouse would have got enough no matter what because he's white. Totally misrepresenting the facts of the case to his audience. Totally misrepresenting the facts of the Jacob Blake case to the audience. I saw on fucking TYT, right, separate from Hassan, sort of. Fucking Anna Kasparian the other day. Said that during the trial was the first time she'd ever seen any of the videos related to the Kyle Rittenhouse event. Any of them, any of the shooting videos.
dang.
They've been making videos about that shit for a year. It's fucking insane. So how are these people not responsible in some way for riots or violent protests that happen as a result of their coverage of these events?
You asking me?
Because it's,
this
it's
is-
dif-
I'm asking
difficult
any
to
of you.
hold them accountable.
No,
It's
like this
difficult
is
to hold them
literally
accountable.
this is
So I
literally
want
what
I want hold on. I also want to get Fanatic in because he hasn't gotten a chance to speak. So Fanatic, go ahead if you have anything you want to add. If you're muted. You're already muted. So
Is anybody here saying that they are completely divorced from like any of the violence that would occur? I don't think that's the case. Like I feel like what's happening here is like it's like we keep arguing as if we have a disagreement on what stochastic terrorism is, and we don't. Like everyone here at least has an understanding. Like we all agree, like this is what it is. Now the only disagreement I thought was whether or not it applied to Vivian or whether or not it applied to Destiny.
No, we're
which
disagreeing
obviously
on the
does.
likelihood of somebody in an audience to commit an act for whether or not you're engaged in stochastic terrorism or whatever.
Whether or
it
not
is.
it's a factor to consider, and the ideological purpose
Well,
behind
don't say
it.
all because it's
sure,
mostly just been
okay.
people
I don't
yelling
even
at
think.
Destiny.
Okay, good. So then let's ask this: is there any person that thinks that if you do something that has a 1% chance of a person committing violence, that you would still be a stochastic terrorist?
Yes.
Potentially, if your audience is big enough, yeah,
I'm
for
taking-
sure.
I would like to take a position, right, that I think that the term itself is problematic. And here's why I think the term itself is problematic. Okay? Because you get into ironically enough, the term can actually reinforce itself. When you start calling people terrorists that aren't necessarily terrorists, you almost engage in what the definition of the term itself is. You start calling your political opponents, you start hinting at the fact that they're terrorists, right? When they don't fit the definition of terrorism. And I think, which is the point I was trying to make in the beginning in my opening statement, is that I think really what we need to engage with is we need to understand how social media affects our culture, and we need to understand how journalistic integrity rotting on both sides of the fence, right? Like this isn't me being like lies, the left-wing media lies, you're wrong, right?
That's
like
pretty
I'm
good.
trying to say that like Fox News, CNN, all of them, they're all engaging in a lack of journalistic ethics. And so this is why these situations become dangerous, right? This is why, like exactly what Doobie was talking about with like Anna Kasparian coming out here, and she's able to portray herself as a journalist, and yet she's done literally no fucking research that like your average 40-year-old mom that watches Facebook videos.
Whose fault is that?
24
Wait,
hours
whose fault is that?
I'm not
Anna's?
pointing to a single individual. I'm
Point to
talking
an
about a
institution.
cultural- I'm talking about culture, right? Institutions and government are
internet.
downstream from culture, right?
So yeah, but I
And
think
so-
I think the problem is you said, and hold on, I'm really aggressive right now, so you might not have exactly meant this,
Right,
all
like,
right?
I'm not trying to come at you, bro.
No, I understand. I'm not saying come at me, but like I don't like this idea of blaming the media. I think that if there were people out there that do good research, and they're on this platform, okay? There are people on this platform that present things,
Can
and
I give an
really.
example? I'll give an example, right?
I
So
give example. The
CNN
Rose Wrist guy on this channel, the Kyozen guy, Wicked Supreme. These are people who are relatively dispassionate
So-
people, or we
right.
can look at larger things. But I'm just saying, like, even on this platform, there are people that like do decent analysis that are relatively dispassionate. They're not like screaming at everybody. Like, nobody wants to watch that shit. They want to watch us scream at each other over whatever shit we're screaming at each other on. Or when it comes to
But
mainstream media,
I'll give an example,
Of
right?
what?
So I think like an example of the causes of this, right? And why I think this should be more tailored to an understanding of social media and journalism as opposed to just talking about individuals that spout bullshit, right? Rand Paul, right? Everyone remember the Rand Paul story where he got attacked by, you can say BLM, you can say Black Bloc, whoever they fucking were, right?
Wasn't his
They were
base
screaming. Well, he's been attacked a few times, right? But when he was with his wife following the Trump speech at the RNC, right? He was attacked and they were screaming, "Say her name."
Brianna.
This is the dude who literally wrote the Justice for Breonna Taylor Act, right? Like this, because he's a Republican, the idea was he must be bad, right? He must be one of those piece of shit cop supporters that likes the idea that like no-knock warrants are used and celebrates Breonna Taylor's death. So they're screaming, "Say her name" to the motherfucker who wrote the Breonna Taylor bill, right? So like I think the issue isn't necessarily the talking heads on Twitch and YouTube. While they do play a role, I think it's an overarching issue about the way that our culture is changing and the way that journalism is not, it's not easy for us to find accurate information anymore because all of these large media places have massive amounts of bias. They don't fucking cite their sources like they should be. They don't use two unnamed sources and one going on the record. And this bias churns up more of this bullshit because they want clickbait. And so I think we have to talk about like what our social media and what our journalistic ethics are doing, and not necessarily Vivian to an audience of a couple hundred people saying some bullshit. Yeah, she's a piece of shit, obviously, right? Like she calls for violence against people because of their political ideology and not because they're actually harming her in any like specific way, right? Like that's a terrible fucking take. And you know, it's a bad person that does that. That being said, labeling her a terrorist, right, tends to lead towards a situation where we're having more and more it's becoming more and more difficult to separate. Like if Antifa is just terrorists, then I'll never talk about Antifa. We should just kill them in a video game. That's not good, right? Like
no.
right,
No.
but it's still stochastic. I understand that there's a differentiation in terms, but I'm saying it's also
I
a loaded
agree. I
term.
understand and I agree that it is a loaded term, but I think that there needs to be like almost a zero tolerance in society for people that are giving these types of positions because
I'm on two minds of it. I'll agree with you on that too.
Yeah, because the problem is that like what you're saying is that using
I don't want to dehumanize them though.
I
That's the problem. I
understand,
think
but
terrorism is
it's
a
not so much whether you
dehumanizing
dehumanize that. The problem is that like you literally have people that are. So here's what I would say. Okay, there is a okay. I don't think that'll probably happen, but there's definitely a chance that there could be violent riots following the Rittenhouse verdict. Right? That somebody else might get killed as a result of that. Right? The only reason why you would go and riot afterwards is because you've been misled by somebody else about the facts of the case. That is the only reason you would go out and riot, assuming he gets an innocent on all charges verdict, right? So in that case,
much, yeah.
how do you not draw a straight line from people on this platform or YouTube or in the mainstream media? Fucking Joe Scarborough just yesterday, I think, said that like he fired 60 rounds of his rifle that night. He fired like 8, okay? When you've got people that are directly saying this type of shit and then people go out and they enact violence because of it, I think that's fucked up. And I think there should be a zero tolerance for that kind of rhetoric. When you're saying like you have to, guys, all we can do, yeah.
The problem here is, are we dehumanizing people that we disagree with politically for the speech that they use that we disagree with?
It's not about just disagreeing with
furthering
speech.
balkanization.
No, it's not just about disagreeing with speech. It's like the idea that like you're calling for people to essentially become like violent actors. You're saying that's the
I
only
obviously
thing to
have
do.
no problem with saying this person's a piece of shit. Like I keep saying,
It has to be. It needs to be more than that. Like if somebody's trying to say all Muslims are invading your country, they're gonna kill you all and rape all your women, right? Like, well, I don't want to dehumanize them. I'm not really concerned about that. I think that type of rhetoric should be like close to zero.
They're doing that shit anyways.
Does intentionality matter to you, Destiny? I mean, if someone's like, well, I didn't, like, and it's supposed that they're genuine and they didn't really mean for their comments and their misinformation to cause violence. Suppose you could read their mind. Would you say, okay, that person,
I think
was,
it becomes
an idiot?
I think it becomes similar in a legal sense to where I want to say for some crimes, like the intentional act can almost be as bad as like the reckless endangerment, like the willful reckless endangerment. So like I wouldn't say that it's on the same level, but I'd say it's like it's pretty close. So like a Facebook mom sharing a meme, nah, I don't think so. But like somebody like me or Hassan who does this shit, 8 hours a day should probably know better. And also to be clear, again, nobody's going to be perfect. Everybody makes mistakes. I'm not saying that like nobody should ever do this. If you do it one time, you need to be excised from all of society or whatever. But I'm saying like this idea, because I've done this in the past. You can say argue with my fucking terrorist comments or whatever, or you can say that I've been wrong on my analysis of some case, or I retweeted hell without reading the fucking thing. I've done it too, of course. But like there should be a low to zero tolerance for that type of behavior in society. Like we should absolutely demonize the fuck out of it.
I'm just saying,
especially intentionally. That's like the frustration with this thing is like if it happens once and then that person fucks up and they're like, hey, listen, I contributed to a fucking toxic atmosphere. As a result, I want to modify some of my behavior so I don't repeat it again or whatever. Dude, fucking come back in. We all make fuck ups. We all say fucking crazy shit. We say crazy shit on this fucking panel. But if you see time after time after time after time, this person creates the toxic environment and then backs off when it's fucking when it's politically expedient or whatever. That's a pattern of behavior that has to be intentional, and I think that's what like a lot of us take issue with, and in particular like this is kind of a weird conversation to have in reference to Mix, because the one thing I respect about her is she'll just say it. A lot of people will just fucking bounce around and be like, well, I'm not saying
okay, sure, but that doesn't necessarily make it better, right? Like
it makes it better to me, I'll tell you that.
Sure, but I think it'll be bad.
I would rather have an honest.
It's easy to
motherfucker
call
who's
him
not
out.
like
But when
that.
you mention that negligence thing, something you say is also this is a big problem that I have with like Vosh, for instance. So like this is somebody that will time and time again get something completely wrong, attribute all this malice, get the facts wrong over and over again, but then they'll come out like a week later and be like, oh hey guys, just I was wrong about this thing. Here's the actual thing that happened. When people do this over and over and over and over again, at some point you're like, okay, bro, like if we're not like at willful recklessness, like you're intentionally being like just stupid at this point. Like
I think everything you just said is totally reasonable, but I just think that by any stretch, you should not have a problem then with the looseness of terrorism at times. You just said there are clear cases where someone like Vosh or Hassan might demonstrate reckless indifference, where it's very clear that in your mind that fits the bill. But for like Facebook moms, it's less clear. That's the same thing with terrorism. They're both ambiguous and can be misused, both stochastic terrorism and regular terrorism, and you shouldn't differentiate your usage there and be more comfortable with stochastic terrorism than you are with regular.
Can I throw you an olive branch?
Well, here I can hold on. I'll agree with him real quick. Then you can say whatever you want. Okay. So if we lived in a world where everybody was Pisco and Destiny, I'm probably okay with the word terrorist. Okay. But the problem is that if I buy into your word of terrorism right now and then I use that going forward, nobody, okay, less than 1% of Americans or people that would be on the left would support calling like BLM riots terrorist riots. Nobody would do it. Nobody would be comfortable saying that like Malcolm X engaged in domestic terrorism. Nobody would be comfortable saying that, right? Now, if everybody was comfortable jumping on board with saying like, okay, yeah, like there could be good forms of terrorism and bad forms of terrorism, which I believe if I was going to say terrorism was a thing, absolutely, I would say there can be good informed bad terrorism, absolutely. But most people aren't willing to engage with that because it's a highly politicized definition.
So public and private positions is how we split the difference.
Hot. Okay,
sure.
So I want to offer you an olive branch too. If your concern is that we're being too loose with the word like terrorist or terrorism, and because of the context that this is coming down in, which is the global war on terror, where we've effectively militarized the entire globe specifically to kill terrorists, and you're worried that this rhetoric is going to come back and take a massive shit on us because
I'm worried about
everybody's a
Destiny's
fucking
too.
terrorist.
Right.
Okay, hold on, but just real quickly, if you're worried that this rhetoric is going to come back and take a massive shit on us despite being definitionally correct, I agree with you.
I'm very concerned about like I'm very concerned about like us widening the definition of terrorism.
Yeah.
And then we can call people terrorists for things that
You've been doing that
didn't
for
meet
years.
previous definitions of terrorism.
Yeah, but I don't like right now.
Dehumanize them, and then before you know it, the FBI is like, "Oh, well, that's stochastic. That's stochastic
Fabian said it.
terrorism."
Beautiful.
And like the FBI has every right to tap your phones, and the FBI has every right to fly footage over BLM protests and make sure that if you're there for more than an hour and they ping your cell phone there, that they can automatically put you and keylog you in their system. Oh wait,
so hold on, wait, real quick. Was
was
anybody on this panel arguing that like legal definition should be brought in when we talk about stochastic terrorism?
No.
Okay,
No,
so not a
but-
single person here is in favor of like the FBI tapping people for
But Destiny,
stochastic.
when you were
But
taking
we've
issue with the
already
terrorism
seen-
definition,
we've already seen how cultural changes of definition make
Yeah,
their
right.
way to the Supreme Court, and then the Supreme Court will use those definitions. And we saw this with gender, right? Like we
Right.
saw the way that they expanded the 14th Amendment to the LGBT was, instead of saying like, no, you need an actual change, in the Constitution. They're like, well, that would be too much.
that was
right?
an originalist opinion by Gorsuch, and you're saying that was, I don't know, some.
Well, I'm just
he's a
saying, like,
gender
even in the
theorist?
highest levels of court, right? You can see how the us changing the language, right, can be a way that the state can justify, right, not actually having to create new laws or circumnavigating the Constitution just by the changing of those things. So we don't need another Patriot Act if we start culturally using the term terrorism differently, because they can just say, well, like, this is what the term terrorism
Wait,
means,
but couldn't we just
and it's
literally apply
defined
this to
way.
any new term we create to call out this thing that the state's going to make it
It
illegal?
happens all the time. We're calling what's happening in China right now with the Uyghurs a cultural genocide. Like, where did that word come from? What's the definition?
Wait, well, to be clear, we wouldn't call that a
We can't
cultural
ask
genocide.
any
We'd call that a
fucking
genocide, right?
That's what you chose to enter with, was fucking.
No,
weird.
no,
Wait,
I'm
but
dead
like, wait,
serious.
so here's
I'm
my-
dead
here's my-
serious.
here's my-
It's
here's
the exact same situation. All they're doing is conditioning you for a response, right? Like, if that's what you're going to say,
Okay,
that
so then
they're
we
doing with
can't
the word terrorism.
we
right
can't call out any bad thing ever, because at some point the state might do anything, I guess. Is it?
That
now.
was
No,
kind
I'm
of
just saying
that's
we
not,
need to be
that's
careful
not
about
the
the
argument. I'm
terms
just
that we
saying, like,
use.
there's parallels.
No,
to
we
it.
can't have any sort of
okay, so
interpretation on any
Fabian-
sort of term. We can't have any differentiation
Fabian-
between
Why
what
would
we
I
say
say
colloquially
that? Gappy,
versus
why,
what we say
why would I
legally.
say something that's stupid? I'm not saying that.
I mean, it
I'm
sounds
just
like you're saying something
terrorism's
that's
a very
stupid.
loaded word that could have more dangerous legal connotations and
Okay,
could
then
have
then somebody
more
invent a new word, since half the problems on this panel seem to just be like the word. Find a new word for it then, and we can all just agree on that and move forward. I'm okay with that.
I mean,
The
that's
issue
not-
seems
well,
to
that's why
literally
I was
just be a
asking Pisco earlier, right? It's like what word would you use for a situation?
If you want to call it like passive incitement to violence or something, I don't know. I mean, if you
the
want to
reason
say,
why I agree with Destiny that like this could be used to apply to any word, but the only reason it's relevant, Destiny, is because that was the reason you said not to use terrorism, is because of the societal implications of using it, and it's going to cause all sorts of problems and classifications, and people won't
sure,
agree with
then
you.
just find a new term then. I don't know anything else that exists that describes like what stochastic terrorism is. I've heard the term stochastic terrorism. I've seen it explained, and I like the concept behind that. If you want to develop a new way, and then I'll try to make this my new word that I will
to be
use until
fair,
other people use it. But
Wait, hold on.
The
Do you
panel
guys-
became
can
about
I ask you guys,
attacking
like,
something you said, right, and not the term itself, which was the original topic. Like,
Okay, but really quickly. So, do you guys think that someone like Hassan or Vash, right, people who seem more concerned with pushing a particular movement or narrative than presenting reality about a specific case, do you think these kind of people should be allowed on the platform if there's some kind of some reason to believe that them doing this again and again and again might lead to riots and protests and violence?
Of course not. But then legally, that would be something called incitement.
well, we're
right?
not
Like,
talking
it-
legally. I think he means like TOS, right?
Well,
Yeah,
sure,
like
okay,
so,
but yeah,
so if
well,
Hassan is, I don't watch Hassan because I'm not brain dead, but I've heard what people have said about his coverage, and I think I saw like a tiny clip about him mentioning like Kyle being white or whatever the fuck, right? So if he's saying stuff like that about Kyle Rittenhouse, right, and he's streaming to tens of thousands of people every fucking day, right? If there's a chance that him doing this again and again and again, and implying that a white guy can just go out and murder people, and because the system's racist, it's totally fine, right? And he's going to get off. If we can acknowledge that can lead to terrorism, right? Should he be on the platform?
Sure, I would say that no. Like, so, like TOS, a lot of times are going to be like a simpler version or a more whatever private version of whatever we would say is is problematic. Like we're making laws against it because it's obviously something wrong, and so I'm sure TOS is going to probably want to make sure that what they're doing is legal already, right? So ultimately, like, yeah, somebody that's constantly doing
Okay.
something that's inciting violence, we would automatically.
So what about someone like Vash, who
I
like
disagree.
immediately after the Jacob Blake shooting went out and said that it's totally unjustifiable. They're going to try to justify it anyway because of the racist.
Or any
This
cop
shooting was
analysis
totally-
he does, it's all
Yeah.
the fucking same.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So
disagree.
someone like this, should this person be on Twitch? Should Prime be on Twitch because
Yes.
he's bringing on Vivian, who's saying this
Right.
crazy
I
shit
think-
all the
I
time?
think-
No.
I
So
think-
it
Or
really
me,
has to be a
who
lot
some
more
people, I
specific, Doobie.
some
When you
people,
wanna look
some
at, like,
people
the
say that I say
basic-
crazy things sometimes.
Sure,
Okay?
I get
So
you.
if
When you-
Prime
you
is bringing these people on, right?
It
Should
has to
he be on the
really
platform?
specific. It has to be really specific, right? Like, so, like, when you want to start talking about stochastic terrorism, or stochastic terrorism, it's going to be like it's going to be a much harder thing to prove, right? Like so then at this point, like it's like, because of it's how nebulous it is, it's going to be up to the individual creators to be able to say something, and they're probably going to need to find a little bit more like strong of a connection, other than like the fact that someone is just wrong. Like, yeah, because the reason why I didn't push back against this earlier, because everybody just wants to go ham. But when Destiny gave his argument, and I was trying to give like a counter, like, it's anytime if I ever say that there's injustice within our criminal justice system, then by definition you could say I'm possibly a stochastic terrorist.
No.
Because at this point, if it's our criminal justice system and our legal system and our judicial system, right? And our Congress, right? Then at this point, then yeah, like the idea is, if all of the powers that be have some form of systemic racism in there, then that means that these systems can embolden and empower themselves. So then that means it seems like the only
Not under my definition.
That's
Just don't invoke my definition, because that's not what I said.
I don't think.
How are those things different than Destiny?
My thing is, when I said that if you say the only way to remedy these systems is through violence, that's when you've crossed the line.
It didn't say that explicitly. And what Fnatic is trying to explain is that you said that there's plausible deniability to it, that you don't have to. You
I
can
never
say it
said
without saying
anything.
it.
Oh, well, hold on. I never said anything
sorry.
about plausible deniability ever. What do you mean?
But you said that you didn't have to say it directly, and that you were looking for.
I said you don't have to
a
say it
word.
directly, but when the only possible alternative is violence. So, for instance, let's say Fnatic was saying that, like, I think that there is systemic racism in our, sometimes even in our voting process. I think there's systemic racism in our policing. I think there's systemic racism all throughout our judicial system.
He believes that, I think.
Sure. Let's say that he said all of those things. I don't think he's established it yet. Now, if he were to go on and say things like, I don't think voting is going to do anything. Voting won't change anything. All of these systems are fundamentally broken. Nobody listens to you. Nobody cares about you. There's nothing you can do to change any of this shit. Then I think we've crossed the line. I was okay. Well, then we got to start killing people. That's literally the only alternative left, right? That's what I think
gave
the
other
difference
alternatives for the record.
or leave the country or whatever. But so
I gave agorism. I gave dual power theory. I gave
I guess I'm a
changing
terrorist.
local situations.
I
Right.
do feel like
Hold
voting
on.
doesn't do anything.
Okay, but we all.
I think really what we should.
Oh no, sorry.
understand-
Counter.
I was going to say, we have to recognize the power of speech, not just as a tool of radicalization, but also as a vent. So I think that's like an important thing, because like, so for instance, like if you were kind of somebody, I think Doobie was asking, like, should I be deplatformed? Should Destiny be deplatformed? Should everybody on this fucking panel be deplatformed? Because at some point in our lives, we advocated for some level of non-state violence and blah, blah, fucking blah. Okay. So the logical answer is yes. But then that seems too hyperbolic, right? So I think that the real stance has to be is like, we have to evaluate this from the perspective of, is this, going to use some utilitarian calculi, is this a vent, or is this contributing to more violence? Because if it's people bitching on the fucking internet, you don't want to tamp down on that, because then that's going to fucking froth over, become a volcano, and then eventually explode. You want to give people the ability to express controversial fucking ideas. That way they can get it out of their fucking system, and then that way they're less
That's a
likely
beautiful
to act on
point.
those
I mean,
fucking ideas.
that's a wonderful point. I think classic protected political hyperbole is like what Kathy Griffin did with Trump's head. And what you guys are essentially saying is,
though, right?
well, what do you think? I mean, that's like classic. There's another LBJ one, a classic SCOTUS one.
No, I think
that's protected
think you
speech.
give a great
Hey, hold on, real
example
quick.
of
We're
Kathy
going
Griffin.
into
What
these
about
are
the
legal
backlash?
arguments now. I don't think anybody before was talking about making this illegal.
Oh, I don't mean illegal. I mean, like, as in terms of like part of the rhetoric of America about stuff that we've accepted as part,
Sure.
as not stochastic terrorism.
Here's something that a lot of people aren't comfortable with for some reason, okay? There are consequences. There are negative consequences to the First Amendment. There are objectively bad things that happen as a result of freedom of speech. But all of us should be okay with that, right? Because we accept that we have a freedom of speech. Now, there are going to be some negatives, but we think the positives outweigh the negatives, right? So Snoop Dogg did some song where they shot basically Trump in the music video or whatever. And I don't know if this was challenged in court directly or not, but this is like, if there was ever going to be a First Amendment, arguably it's for something like this. But if somebody went out and killed Trump, and they were like a huge Snoop Dogg fan, it's pretty dishonest to say, well, hold on, I don't see at all how that could have ever influenced that person. It seems like it probably did. So we can argue that, like, yeah, this is maybe a form of, we can say...
We don't analyze it at the time after it happened. We analyze it at the time Snoop Dogg made that video. Was that stochastic
Sure,
terrorism?
we can even argue at the time it happens. Yeah, sure, that it
say
might be
it
a form
is.
that rhetoric could be stochastic terrorism.
At the time
it was made. Yes, we can absolutely say that, right? Sure, we can say
Okay.
that.
This is
I mean,
this
seems
is this is
oh.
again. This is no counter. You got to get modded above me. Let me go real quick. So this is again like as counter said, right? Like where we constantly end up in this ethical dilemma, right? Like I think what you should be doing is you should try not to call people loaded terms. You should call out their shitty ideas, right? And I think that's really the thing here when people talk about, well, should this person be deplatformed or should this shit doesn't work. Right, like it becomes a problem. Like the more people you deplatform, the more you just encourage websites like fucking 4chan and Daily Stormer and like other fucked up places where people aren't exposed to opposing counter narratives. Right.
Wait,
What
who's
you
heard
should
from
do
Stefan Molyneux
is you should-
recently?
But the problem is their
Right.
rhetoric.
I mean, Stefan
hold
Molyneux
on,
is a fairly
but-
decent following on BitChute to be fair.
But
to him.
so to be very clear,
But no, but I
go
mean,
ahead,
yeah, sure, he's lost some some engagement, but
No,
that
he's
didn't
lost almost
necessarily work for-
everything, right?
Right,
Let's
but
be
that didn't
honest.
work for fucking Alex Jones, right? Like
It
you know,
probably
because
worked for
he's
him
so
too.
memeable.
He's-
Probably mitigated it a fuck.
No, yeah, Alex Jones has
Maybe,
absolutely
but,
lost some time,
the
right?
problem, but then you start getting into quantifying like what is the difference between someone having more ability to engage with his content, but then immediately going to the next YouTube video that's calling him out, and the difference between going to someone's website or going to their little dark corner. Like, have you seen the comments section in BitChute? Like every other
Have you
fucking
seen
thing
my comment
is like
section?
is like they, except they don't use they in quotation marks, right? Like, you know, you so like the issue here is like when you start trying to group people and then separate them instead of just attacking their shitty ideas, you get into this whole conundrum of probabilities and problems. What you should be doing is the exact opposite of what Destiny said, but the same thing at the same time, is that no, we don't accept the First Amendment because like we did a utilitarian calculus and said that some bad shit is acceptable. We accept the First Amendment because it's a principle, because it is a principle of free speech within Enlightenment values that we say that like
Enforced
so long
by
as
the
you're not calling for direct actionable violence, that you should be able to say whatever the fuck you want to say. Okay, this is like the SPLC got started defending the KKK, right?
No.
And why did they do that? Because they were fucking
FLS.
because
sorry, buddy.
no, but I'll just finish and I'll let you go, right? Like, why did they do that? Because they knew that it was better to call out those shitty ideas and to see those people with their fucking mask off. Counterpoints, if you love the idea of Vivian being mask off the whole time, then she needs to be on the platform so we can show people that follow her why these ideas are shitty.
Okay, yeah, yes and no, but here's the thing that I wanted to push back against very specifically. I think the First Amendment was a utilitarian calculus based off of the founding fathers. I think they said that when people cannot speak for themselves and they basically have to go around with like corrupt authority, what happens is that a society rots, and as a result, super negative shit happens over time. And the reason why you had to have
JS Mill was a utilitarian, like a famous one, right? And
right,
he wrote
yeah,
on liberty. So I mean, you could be right in that.
But
freedom of speech
this
is still a
is
principle. Of
right,
our
but what
founding
what I want to say is like so for instance, like very specifically, like it was kind of interesting making a point that I think Pisco might have not have thought that I agreed with, but then we both agreed on it or whatever. Just because a lot of stochastic terrorism is legal. What Tucker Carlson does every single night is legal. He's allowed to express his opinion in that way, even if that opinion ultimately results in people radicalizing to the point that they think that they're being invaded, that the government is out to fucking get them, that they need to fucking line their fucking their insulation in their house with fucking tinfoil, and they need to fucking snub their Mexican neighbors. Like, that's legal. Whether or not it's good is a different fucking question, and whether or not we should call it out culturally is a different fucking question. And I think the answer is,
I'll agree.
I think calling it stochastic terrorism is perfectly fine, because we can basically, for me, the term stochastic terrorism, the reason why I like the weight behind it is because it says, hey buddy, we smell your fucking bullshit, we know what you're fucking poking at, and we know that you're poking at fucking evil shit. That's why I like the weight of the term, but I do have the government concerns that you were bringing up.
Okay, wait 1 second. To be very clear about what I meant, right, or what my position is. So I did mention Connor, Fnatic, Destiny, and Prime in my opening, right? So I think that all the examples that I gave, I think could reasonably be seen as like sarcastic terrorism. But I think that
advocated for state actors.
but I also think that we all do a little sarcastic terrorism sometimes.
But you too, right? You said yourself as well.
Me too. Me too.
Okay, the bar's way too low, guys. I mean,
Yeah,
you just
Consider the extent of it. That's why we consider the extent. Don't just get scared over somebody using the word terrorism.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't think that this term is that big a deal, right? But however, I think that if we're going to be pushing Facebook and Twitter and all these other social media platforms to moderate and to like regulate fake news and misinformation spreading on their platforms, I think it's reasonable to expect the same thing of Twitch when we have people like Hassan pushing fake news about really important news items that could lead to violence. If he's doing this repeatedly, and it's demonstrable that he's doing this repeatedly, I think it's totally fine to say, hey, this person probably doesn't need to be on the platform.
I just think it's such a stretch. There's so much
Well,
weight.
if somebody is repeatedly doing that type of back and forth shit, like if we look at Vosh and the shit that has been said with cops, and he's repeatedly going back and forth, I know this is going to piss Pisco off, but if there is a pattern of conformity therewith, and we see that there is clear character evidence that time and time again they are acting within this trait, I think it's totally fine to take them off at this point. I think it's kind of stupid that we're basically waiting for the one singular moment that maybe they finally say something that's a lot more direct than circumstantial, and even though there's been so many other prior instances,
this is a policy
only
implication.
then can we finally act.
Yeah, now this is a policy implication of what you're saying, and you're saying like essentially liars should be pushed off Twitch.
Yeah, that's
what
what
about the pattern of conformity.
So if we can demonstrate
and everything
that either they're outright lying or they don't care enough about the actual news item to be honest about it because they're more concerned about pushing like a particular narrative.
You're going to create balkanization.
This misinformation that they're pushing, right, might lead some people to react violently, right? Can you tell me why they shouldn't be a policy that says these people should be removed from the platform?
More balkanization. Right. You're going to start separating people, right? Like if you allow more and more corporate censorship, then what you do is you drive more and more people off the platform. Except these people have jobs and they have money too, right? And so they're going to want to go somewhere else for their type of content. Like Twitch is already overwhelmingly left-wing in the politics space, right? Like I don't think anyone really disagrees with that. I'm not saying it's good or bad. I'm just saying it is what it is, right? So if you allow corporate censorship and it starts to take on a political bias, which it's made by humans, it's gonna, right? Like whether it be right-wing or left-wing, it's gonna have some bias. It's gonna put and especially when you have reporting mechanisms, right? And you have you get this situation where it gets worse and worse. And what you're gonna have is you're gonna have competitors start popping up, and you're gonna have two different sources for two different groups of people with two different types of censorship, creating two different echo chambers, and maybe even three or four. The answer is free speech, calling out people's bullshit ideas, and decentralized and distributed networks so that we can get away from corporate and government.
But this isn't just about their ideas, because everybody on this panel, we're talking about like a quite a different thing now, and I know that all this is going to get attributed in a future conversation. Okay, the reason why I like the discussion around stochastic error is because a lot of people don't believe that that's a bad thing at all in any case ever, or that it's real. This conversation right now about like, should we deplatform people? Should they get banned? What do we do about it? Should it be illegal? That's none of that shit I have ever endorsed ever. Not talking about any of that. I would just like people to acknowledge that it even exists first, and then there
that's
could be
like terrorism, just like me and the January 6 people. That's all I want too.
I've already acknowledged it's bad. You want? Okay. I acknowledged that it was. Wait, don't say okay like I didn't. If I was acknowledged bad, I just didn't. I don't like calling it terrorism. But
why? I mean, you like calling them stochastic terrorists. I like calling them terrorism. Why is that?
I don't call them stochastic terrorists. I would call them victims of stochastic terrorism.
No. You like calling the people you want to call stochastic terrorists, not because of any policy implications, but because you think it fits your definition.
I said that I like to call them victims of stochastic terrorism because Trump obviously engaged in rhetoric.
No. Sorry, you want to accuse people like Vosh and those people of stochastic, as being stochastic terrorists, just like I want to accuse the people who, because I think it fits the definition, at least the people who are committing violence on January 6th, as being terrorists. And you say I'm not agreeing with all the other implications of that.
Yeah, sure, but the difference is here's the difference, okay? You can give me any other word but terrorist and I'll agree with you. Or you can even give me the word terrorist and in your mind world, I can agree with you. Like,
isn't there a parody here, Destiny? Isn't there a parody? I mean, you're calling people stochastic terrorists. I'm calling terrorists, and you say, "To hell with the consequences." It fits the definition. I'm going to call it, but don't attribute me any of that other side stuff.
I wish that it was a different term than stochastic terrorism, because the terrorism word of the part doesn't mean anything. It has literally nothing to do with what I'm talking about. But because that word is in there, you're seeing the parallel, but it's not. We could call this stochastic incitement to violence, and then boom, this whole conversation is different, right? Everybody agrees that what happened with the January 6th stuff was fucking horrible, and we can all agree to different varying levels of responsibility. I think you and I probably would almost completely overlap in terms of who we believe is responsible, the levels of responsibility shared, who should have charge of blah, 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 right? Whether we call them terrorists is something different. The reason why I'm interested in this term stochastic terrorism is because for a long time, the right denied that it was even that concept, whatever you want to call it, even existed. And now today, the left disagrees that that concept even exists. That's why I think there's an importance in discussing it. Now, if we want to call it stochastic incitement to violence or whatever, we can call it something different. It's just, I don't care about the terrorist part of it. I just care about this concept that, like, if you engage in a rhetoric that nothing is going to save you except for violence, then you have some culpability at the end of the day for if violence happens. If people die tomorrow because of the fucking verdict that comes out for the Rittenhouse shit, then I think that people like Hassan and Vosh absolutely share in that responsibility. But that concept right there is not agreed on by most people. I don't care about the words for it.
Yeah, and what's interesting is that a lot of people on the left are totally fine with that same argument being made about like Lauren Southern or Alex Jones or fucking Stefan Molyneux. But when we talk about Rittenhouse or Jacob Blake or any of the fucking misrepresented facts about any of the cases that were happening during the BLM riots, right? That were propped up and pushes evidence for racism or like injustice, right?
Yeah, but the reason is it's not a matter of hypocrisy. They just wouldn't agree on whether or not they disagree like materially on whether or not these things were problematic.
I don't think that's true.
What?
No. Yeah, no. I don't. I think it's been demonstrated that at least, I'm not gonna say everybody, but some of these people never bothered to look into the case to figure out whether or not it's true that they disagree. Right? They saw someone being killed by the police. They jumped straight to their narrative and started pushing it as evidence of racism. Right? Without even bothering to check, because they don't really give a fuck about whether or not it's evidence of racism. They're more interested in pushing the worldview.
Well, listen, if you just say some people, that's so broad that, I probably have no choice.
But Vosh and Hassan.
Every large left content creator, every single 150% of them.
The young turks.
Listen, I think Vosh is racist as freak, but I still have
to admit Destiny.
But he still clearly, obviously looked at the evidence.
No,
he might disagree with you.
If he did, then he wouldn't be saying so much false shit.
He literally played the videos on his stream.
He literally, before commenting about the Rittenhouse stuff, he literally said he didn't watch a minute of the trial and he just read headlines. He literally said that. And for the Jacob Blake stuff, he clearly didn't read or do anything. He played one video, but like,
the trial. But I'm talking about of Kyle Rittenhouse, like of the actual incident in question. He clearly watched.
He didn't. Right? He clearly didn't, because when he argued about it with me on stream on that fateful day for my career, when he argued with me about it, he was saying shit like, "Didn't he turn around and fire at people 20 yards away into the crowd and shit?" He clearly didn't watch anything.
Yeah, he clearly.
I mean, maybe in that initial conversation, but since then he has, right?
I don't think so.
Who knows?
Fucking no.
Here's the thing, like, if he did watch it, though, like,
but I mean, based on Pisco's stance, we look at when the statement was made at the time. We don't care about what happened afterwards.
But if he made a good
very moment when he's saying that,
watched all the
demonstrably false shit.
That has to be true. It can't be the case that we label the same action with the same possibility of causing violence, different things just because one happened to result in violence. I mean, everyone must agree with that. That you assess whether or not stochastic terrorism
at the time
the statement's made.
Yeah, of course. Like an incitement to violence, I don't think legally requires violence to happen, right?
Well, if incitement's a bad, I think attempt is a better one. You don't have to have the actual thing take place.
Okay,
a substantial step,
right? You would agree it requires intent, right?
That's what I think is important here too, and I think some of these definitions, and I'm sorry to say, including Destiny's, is missing. That I really and now I would agree with him on this, that there's a certain amount of malicious indifference or reckless indifference, which for all intents and purposes you can say is intentionality. I think that's fine, and that gets in some of the actors he wants to get in. But I think there needs to be a malicious actor here, and I think it needs to be a high threshold. You guys are talking about low bars where everyone on this platform is a stochastic terrorist at different times. That's way too low. It's got to be higher than that. There has to be some
or maybe
real
it's a
chance.
reflection on where the political discussions are at today in society.
Everybody knows the transphobe. Everybody's a racist. Everybody's a bigot. Once we start making these words so incredibly vacuous that nothing can be really said for, it really doesn't accomplish anything, right? Like, I was invested in the conversation originally. You know how much I love my definitions, but then I realized early on in the conversation, This thing is so nebulous and so vacuous that it applies to literally everyone. So what the freak are we going to get out of the conversation anymore?
I think
There
there's a
is
difference in that.
there is
I'm
definitely
not
a
trying
more
to,
concrete
I'm not,
definition.
I'm not trying to label people as stochastic terrorists, more so as I'm trying to call out stochastic terrorism. So I don't know if this seems like a distinction or a distinction that isn't really in existence, but like, so for instance, like, I don't think it's worthwhile to say that like this person is a stochastic terrorist, but we can say that like this rhetoric or this communication or this message is a form of stochastic terrorism. I don't know if that amends it a little bit better or whatever. I'm not trying to like say like a person is wholly this thing, but just that this action is really bad. We need to understand that it's bad, or at least not necessarily it's bad. We need to understand what it is, and we need to understand what it leads to, so that we can have a better conversation around it. Because all of the who knew that could have possibly happened is dumb as fuck.
Yeah, I think Destiny.
It's a pretty common thing, right? Where the words and the way that we use them begin to expand in our culture, right? Like it's just a thing that's occurring from. I mean, I guess you could say it's kind of the influence of dialectics in our culture. This idea of like deconstructing things and then like synthesizing them. I would say almost certainly happens more with left-wing people, but right-wing people have kind of taken these same positions to things as well, right? And so I do think it's important, especially if we're going to use terms that are loaded, right, to put them in strict confined boxes, right, and call out people that are using these terms loosely, right? Because the way that the expansion of derogatory terms occurs online, I think is really getting into an area where we're constantly in a need to create new definitions and new terms for things, because the old terms and the old definitions become watered down to a point of meaninglessness, right? And at the same time, right, the words like terrorism, I think, become really and certain derogatory terms can be really dangerous as they get watered, because they're used as a means to dehumanize people, right? To take people's bad actions, right? And then label them as part of their identity, right? So it's no longer that Vivian said this shitty thing, right? And we should attack this shitty thing. It's now Vivian is a terrorist. Right? Like, so once things become identifying factors, we have to be really careful about that.
Listen, I watched a 12-hour ContraPoints video about this, okay? It's called essentialism. It's where you take a virtue of fucking somebody and then you make it a core component of their personality, so you can demonize them, call them a piece of shit, and dismiss them and dehumanize them.
We did it in Iraq and Afghanistan with the term insurgent, right?
We do it all the time.
If the compromise is we can call out stochastic terrorism, but us as a panel of decent human beings will never call somebody a stochastic terrorist. We will say that they're engaging in stochastic violence, or if they're being particularly nefarious, they're engaging in stochastic terrorism. I think that's a fair compromise. That
could Destiny needs to get back so that we can trend set. I think after the new term, boys. We're getting rid of the old term. We're creating a new term. Fuck it.
Wait, I missed the term. What's the new term?
Pattern, when somebody's doing it so many different times, they're walking like a duck, talking like a duck, and there's a continuous pattern of stochastic terrorism, I think it's totally fine to call them a stochastic terrorist.
Yeah, I actually
think we clearly have some sort of pattern of conformity. That's totally fine.
No. If like journalistic institutions like the New York Times and Washington Post have put out articles that don't include all the information. Like if somebody did good faith research and they used those as sources,
that's a great point.
All the information. How do you hold them accountable for it?
I made that point several times.
Right? No. They did too, and I think that's a great point from Revolt, which is, and you guys aren't going to like this answer. I don't think we should be calling the New York Times stochastic terrorists, because they got a fact wrong.
No, Revolt is literally saying what I said before, which is
it was a misdistillation of it that affected.
Right, part of the problem is we're lacking journalistic ethics anymore, and a lot of the information that's out there is there for clickbait or for rage clicks instead of actually giving people good information. And it would be a lot easier if people say some bullshit, right? And then people Google it, and then they find a news article, and the news article actually tells them what's going on. But instead, you have institutions like Fox News and CNN and MSNBC and The Guardian, and all of these institutions have deep political biases where they intentionally omit tons of information that's relevant, right? And then they spin narratives, and then the information that they feel that they absolutely should put in, they put all the way at the bottom of the fucking article because it goes against the narrative that they're spinning in the first 3 paragraphs.
But let's
right?
just
And
say
that-
they're
that's
engaged in
Well,
stochastic
I
violence.
hope people are not stupid enough to only read the fucking first line or the first.
The
line.
overwhelming, no, listen,
headlines.
literally,
They
the
do,
overwhelming majority
overwhelmingly.
of people do not even read articles. They read just the headline.
Twitter,
That is-
Twitter had
that
to
is
put
a
a, Twitter had to
so
put a
important.
fucking prompt in before you could retweet something to say, "Are you sure you want to retweet this?" So reading it first, like it's that big of a fucking problem. Like it is endemic. Like people will only read the headlines
Yes,
just about always.
it's that bad. Yes.
Which is why it's so fucking
so-
important that people like Vosh or other people on the platform don't end up engaging in that type of stochastic terrorism. That
I mean,
people
like,
like
people-
Vivian
people-
who probably
we've
have
done
the
studies.
capacity
We've
and
done-
capability
We've
speaking
done
from a position.
psychological. Sorry, my bad. I got hype and I was interrupting.
If someone's going on a fucking panel and they're saying, "Hey, I know this shit. I know how to talk about this. I'm capable of talking about this specific topic with a bunch of other people and engaging in it," they have a lot more responsibility than the average individual. In that case, then yeah, if they're not going to engage in these types of facts, if they're going to have a pattern of conformity where they're constantly saying wrong shit about different cop cases and then they're backing it off afterwards, like someone like Vosh, then yeah, they're a stochastic terrorist. They are engaging in stochastic terrorism.
But,
Yeah, I think you
I
can
just
say
wanna-
that,
I
but
just
also
wanna
that,
add
but
real
also that
quick,
people
real
who
quick, real
people
quick,
really
real
no even quicker,
super quick,
even quicker. Yeah,
Oh
people who sometimes cross up like with the comments that I pointed out in my like opening, right? Sometimes people cross into the line of stochastic terrorism, but that doesn't mean they're doing this all the time, right? So I pointed to like Destiny, Prime, Counter, and Fanatic, some of the most reasonable people that I've met on this platform, right? But yeah, sometimes I cross the line, sometimes I cross the line, right? It doesn't mean we need to label them as this all the time. But there's some people who should be labeled as this because they have a pattern of doing this.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's
I
why
just
we
wanna add
consider
real quick.
that's why we consider the extent
real
and the
quick,
frequency. I have
quick.
barely talked this fucking panel. I'm gonna
Yeah,
get my
go ahead,
like,
Gappy,
30
please,
seconds to fucking talk. All right. The extent and the frequency of which they're doing it is why we care about this shit, right? There's a difference between somebody saying, "Oh, this person made a racist statement," versus, "Oh, this person is a flat out racist." I think we would all agree there's a difference there. And if somebody's continuing to have that pattern of making those types of racist statements when they're backing off, it might be a lot easier. The weight of the evidence might be able to say, "Yeah, that person is actually a racist." I don't know why we're so fucking scared of calling somebody a stochastic terrorist in fear that they might not be able to meet some sort of threshold just because we can't give a specific, objective, direct amount.
because we
I
want them to
explained
come
that. I
our
explained that.
way.
No,
The
I
implication
explained
of
that.
the
I explain that, right? Because you're talking about identifying people. Once you stop looking at people as fellow human beings, right? Or fellow citizens of your nation, right? And you start giving them identifiers, exactly what Counterpoint's
That's
talking about. It's
ridiculous.
essentialism. You start
No,
tying their
it's true.
behavior to the identity of the person. You start dehumanizing them. and
That's
you start
ridiculous.
leading to-
They're
it's
still
not
a person.
ridiculous. It's
Well, we're not
that's-
dehumanizing them. We're saying they're
How is that
human.
not
That's doing.
dehumanizing? That's
We're
like
saying
literally
they're a
the
human
definition.
being who is doing a dumb fucking
don't
thing, and we're
understand
pointing
the
out the dumb
definition of
fucking thing that they're
dehumanization.
doing.
Okay,
Right,
but guys, I have a super relevant point. So I'm going to talk to Vosh in the next 10 minutes whenever we get fucking dismissed. And so, do you think that I should say that sometimes it appears that he's engaged in stochastic violence, or should I call him a stochastic terrorist? Because
Only
that's
if-
obviously-
only if you talk
Depends
to
on what
him-
you see from what you believe in his extent of
Only-
frequency.
No, okay,
I would say
but
yes.
my
I would say
point-
yes.
My point is that the rhetoric that we choose to speak with people with is going to have a fucking impact. And if you're trying
Yes.
to convince somebody to modify
Yeah.
their behavior, then
Right.
you need to treat them as a fucking
It's-
human being who's engaging in a negative behavior, not as a fucking evil person that you want to destroy. That's like, that should be obvious.
Challenge
Well, after a
behavior
certain-
and you
after a
challenge
certain-
ideas.
We are
You
challenging,
don't
but
challenge people and then identify them with monikers.
do you think
that are
it's okay to
dehumanizing.
identify
The
somebody as a
problem- the way-
racist if they continually say racist things and do racist things?
But I mean, that's slightly different because nobody's expecting like a violent reaction from the state to solve the problem of a racist. They are expecting it to solve the problem of a terrorist, and that's the problem. Is like it's kind of like easing the weight of this word. You know what I mean? Like, and it's lightening the load that it has. But in reality, it's conditioning people to think that like this is terrorism, and so that we should react with violence against it because that's the right thing to
I'll
do.
go further and say that I think that large institutions are being infected enough with ideologies that use terms like racism, bigotry, transphobia, and things of that nature as a means of dehumanizing people and as a means of attacking them. And I actually do fear both of those things as being a way that could occur, because I see a frightening growth of terms like racism and redefinition of those terms from like this Mercuse type of perspective of like this state is fucking God, and like the idea of racism is now power and privilege and white. Like there's a lot of problems there, right?
But
And so I actually
don't you
both of
realize
those.
we've all been called racist so much that like now we don't even care anymore? So like the word's lost its meaning.
I mean,
like,
I think for actual racists, the term racism has now become a badge of honor that means that I engage in the truth and I say the uncomfortable things that other people don't want to hear, and that's a big problem.
That exactly
is my
fucking
problem. Is
sad.
that, look, we see these things happening all the time, and from the same exact person. Like one of the conversations that I intend to have with Destiny is specifically over his use of the word racist. Like basically, he recently had a conversation with Lauren Southern, in his normalized Lauren Southern project, and he basically said that like welfare would be racist because it actually like any system that doesn't affect people equally would automatically be racist. So it's like, yeah, I think a lot of times I don't think he really cares about the words whatsoever. Even when we do have words that clearly have a meaning, things that we're like we should be using these words like they are weighted for a reason, and it seems like using them in this way palliates those words.
He's
And
referring
I'm
to you,
always-
Destiny.
I think words
in case you
words
don't.
words
talking about me?
100% have that type of meaning.
Hold on, Fanatic. Say what
Oh,
you said.
I'll repeat it. I basically said that like because they were talking about the fact that like this word being used in this way, like it's part of just like I wish someone could re-say it one more time. Like it dehumanizes people, and that like ultimately like we've been called, people have been called, not me, but people have been called racist, myself actually included. Now that I think about it, we've
That
been
is true,
called
my fellow
racist
racist man.
times.
Hello.
Right, there we go. We've been called racist enough times that like that word stops.
Yeah. Okay. If you want to have like this discussion that like you calling a stochastic terrorist is like a bad argument. I mean, like I've argued with Pisco for like 12,000 hours that I hate the word terrorist. So I'll buy that shirt 100%.
Yo, you weren't here when.
So you back from Vivian being a terrorist, or do you think that she fits the definition?
Jesus Christ! Listen to what I just said. Okay, I said that if you want to find a term different than stochastic terrorism, that's fine.
I just said
that's the
you weren't
only
here.
one that I know that has that. So when you say, "Oh, then do you regret it?" I mean, if another term exists
Destiny,
then
you
said, then
weren't
I'll
here.
use it for what?
We were almost like, dude, maybe we should call it stochastic violence.
We're ascending.
Oh,
Rather
sure,
than
sure. I'm just saying his piece is coming out.
instead
Yeah,
of
yeah.
a moniker of
Sure,
the
yeah,
behavior,
stochastic violence would be
identifying
fine.
and
I'd be
essentializing.
100% on board with that. Yeah, sure.
Okay, so what's the new word? Is it stochastic violence?
Stochastic violence. Yep. Engaging in stochastic violence.
Cringe. Okay,
Perfectly fine.
that's fine.